a moment of peril, but also a moment of extraordinary possibilities. Time is short.
Joe Biden says we're running out of time to tackle the world's climate crisis. Today he spoke at a virtual Earth Day summit with 40 world leaders pledging the U.S. will cut greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030. Big move with the help of countries like China and India, he said, the world's largest carbon emitters, of course, calling it a, quote, moral and economic imperative. That is a massive promise, cutting them by half in 9 years. Meanwhile, radical left-wing climate activists, this is funny, still not happy. In protest, one advocacy group dumped wheelbarrows full of cow poop right outside the White House this morning as a symbol of how they've really felt about the plan. So if you're trying to pander to them, Mr. Biden, it ain't going to work. For more on this, we're joined now by Myron Evil, Director of the Center for Energy and Environment at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and Daniel Turner, Founder and Executive Director of Power the Future. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Myron, we're going to start with you. Net zero emissions, they say, by 2050, but only with China's help. So how foolish can we possibly be to expect that?
Well, it's preposterous. It's practically impossible. It will devastate the economy. If they actually did it, we'd all be back living in caves. We'd be back in the Stone Age. But of course, China plays the long game. They keep talking the talk, but in fact, what they really keep doing is building coal-fired power plants, which means that they produce about almost twice as much greenhouse gas emissions every year as the United States does. So they're playing us for suckers, and we're supposed to essentially kill our own economy and our own military power to let them take over the world. I mean, that's they're smart.
It's incredible how dumb we are. I mean, you're right. They are smart. We are really dumb to keep thinking that China's going to go along with this. Daniel Biden said he's also planning to withdraw a Trump administration rule that sought to bar states from setting vehicle emissions rules like California has, or setting zero emission vehicle mandates. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says it is proposing to revoke the Trump rule issued in September 2019. Open this up for us. What's the impact of this?
Well, I think this is just a further push of the administration to federalize everything, right? They don't like states' rights. They don't like private property. And that's why you will see this administration, through the cabinet agencies, through the EPA, through the Department of Interior, push an agenda that federalizes and nationalizes everything. This is an administration that also hates vehicles, right? They are pushing high-speed rails, which is a joke. California has been trying for more than a decade to build a high-speed rail from Sacramento to Los Angeles. It is $100 billion over budget, and it's not even close to being built. Yeah. But we're supposed to believe we're going to connect all of America by high-speed rail. And it's also an administration that is pushing hundreds of millions of dollars of subsidies for electric vehicles, which is great if you are Elon Musk or if you own stock in Tesla, like Nancy Pelosi and her husband do. So this is just their effort to push an agenda and a product that they like at the expense of individual rights and individual choices.
Makes sense. I'm going to get you guys both on this. Today, Biden's climate envoy, John Kerry, who we spend a lot of time talking about around here because he does so much ridiculous stuff, travels on a private jet, of course, while pushing his climate agenda, one of the best things. He tried to take a swing at the Trump administration for withdrawing the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. Take a listen.
Regrettably, without any facts, without any science, without any rationale that would be considered reasonable, the former president decided to pull out. He's the only president in the entire world, the only chief of state in the entire world who, without any scientific evidence, decided to pull out of the Paris Agreement.
Gentlemen, this cracks me up because John Kerry just admitted, it wasn't even 2 months ago, that he admitted in reality the Paris Accord does nothing and that we have to go further. Myron, I'll start with you.
Mr. Kerry has the scientific understanding of a not very well-educated 6-year-old, but he has the big talk. What he fails to recognize is that what President Trump did was one of the bravest things an American president has done to take us out of the Paris Climate Treaty, when the entire political establishment,
right,
every CEO, every world leader, even quite a few Republicans, including some people in his own administration, were saying, "Oh, we better stay in. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just a voluntary agreement." And what President said was, "Hey, look, this exposes us to all kinds of legal jeopardy in court because the environmental groups and others will go to court and say, hey, you signed this voluntary agreement, now you got to do it." So I think President Trump deserves a huge amount of credit for this, and it's just too bad that his decision wasn't done in a better way so that it would stick.
Yeah, Daniel, same question. I mean, Kerry says this thing never worked. It was basically feckless, but Trump's an idiot to pull out of it. What do you say?
Yeah, well, there is a lot of scientific evidence for pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords, and the fact that we lowered emissions more than any other country without following the accord is proof that the accord is actually kind of useless. But look, beyond the Paris Climate Accord, what John Kerry is emblematic of is this. No one in his stature is going to give up voluntarily the life of comfort and leisure and opulence that the fossil fuel industry has given them. John Kerry owns multiple homes. He flies in private jets. Michael Bloomberg, who's one of the biggest donors to the green movement, has 14 mansions worldwide, right? Bill Gates, a huge climate funder of all the green initiatives. He has a real estate portfolio that would make someone blush.
But you know what, guys? At the end of the day, these are not rules for them. It's rules for all of us peasants. I mean, they can have 10 houses and fly private. Us peasants, though, we're going to have to walk when we want to go to Phoenix to get a little sun in the wintertime. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Love to see you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coming up, President Biden set to speak before a joint session of Congress next week. How tonight on America First, President Biden expected to give his first speech before a joint session of Congress next week, just shy of his 100th day in office. Here's Jen Psaki with what we can expect.
Certainly recognizes that this is an opportunity to speak directly to the American people, one of the highest profile opportunities that any president has in their first year in office. It is a very important speech, a very high profile speech, but it is happening around the 100th day of his presidency, and it won't represent or touch on the totality of every issue that's a priority.
Very vague, as always. We do at least know the president's going to outline his American Families Plan, among other things. They want to spend trillions more dollars, of course. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina has been tapped to deliver the Republican response, and this year Democrats will be delivering a response of their own to their own president. New York Congressman Jamal Bowman will be speaking on behalf of the left-wing Working Families Party once Biden is finished. Jason Miller, senior advisor to the 45th president, joins us now to talk about all this. Jason, good to see you.
Rob, good evening. Good to be here in studio with you.
It's great to have you here. Why are they having a response to their own candidates, their own president's speech?
Because Joe Biden isn't quite progressive enough. He's not quite woke enough. Here's the thing I'm fascinated about looking ahead to next week. Joe Biden is way underwater when it comes to polling on immigration. The majority of Americans think that he's wrong on the border. They think that he's wrong on reversing policies like remain in Mexico or catch and release. And so Joe Biden's going to go, and he doesn't want to talk about immigration at all. He wants to talk about how President Trump put him on the path of success with vaccine distribution and things like that, and get the economy back on track. So I think we're going to have a little bit of two Americas next week. We're going to have the mainstream media trying to give Joe Biden a pass. We're going to have the right of center folks, normal Americans, who are saying, hey, Joe Biden, you have a crisis at the southern border that you caused.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, the Working Families Party. I mean, doesn't that just sounds very Marxist, and just the way doesn't it just sound very left wing? The Working Families part, or whatever they're calling Jamal Bowman's, whatever the speech he's going to give?
Well, you kind of think they'd be a little bit happy with Joe Biden. I mean, he's doing everything that Kamala Harris tells him to do, everything that Elizabeth Warren tells him to do. And so, they kind of have the perfect pawn in Joe Biden. I mean, they basically just point him in the right direction and say, implement liberal policy.
And what do you think about Tim Scott doing the response for the Republicans?
Genius. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Tim Scott was trying to work with President Trump to get this policing reform effort done, but Kamala Harris and a number of the Democrats were opposing it. There's, just so people kind of realize where this debate is that Tim Scott says you can't go and take charges against police officers. It's this thing called Section 242 unless it's willful misconduct. There's an intentional. Whereas the Democrats want it to be any kind of reckless conduct, which gets a lot more gray area. Here's the danger. I like the fact that a lot more of our police have body cams so we can see some of this going on. But when you see our police in these split-second decisions, this isn't an NFL instant replay to see if the ball got across the goal line. These are police officers in real time trying to keep people safe and save lives. And I see the Democrats break down the tape and, this officer must be guilty.
It is something else. Speaking of all of that, President Trump released a statement just not too long ago responding to LeBron James' dangerous tweet when he put out the picture of the cop following the shooting of Ma'Khia Bryant. Former president, writing, LeBron James should focus on basketball. His racist rants are divisive, nasty, insulting, and demeaning. He may be a great basketball player, but he's doing nothing to bring our country together.